Good morning, Ascension Church. How is everybody doing this morning? Love you so much. So glad that you would tune in. I cannot say enough that God has so much in store for all of us today. I know that you have your family sitting next to you. I know that in and of itself is not an easy thing to do. So I just want to give it up one more time for every family listening, everybody that's awake right now. You're doing such a good job. You're doing better than you think. I know we recently got a update. Everybody got it on their phone. There was actually an alert that went out about some of the COVID cases that went higher yesterday. So we had, I think, about 700 tests positive yesterday. So they let us know to stay at home. I want to let you know, I want you to be wise as you move and breathe. Should you stay at home? I think you should stay at home. Okay, if you ain't got to go nowhere, don't go nowhere. I'm going to be so just an avid listener as people are saying what's going on right now, and want to make sure that we are playing our part as a church and as a community to make sure that we are helping just be a role player in everything that's going on right now in the world around us. But with that being said, we have a new series today. Y'all ready for that? You ready for a new series? I'm super pumped. This series is one that we decided we were going to embark on because God has been doing such a new thing in the season of our church. Can you agree to that? That God has been doing some amazing things down to us getting a building, which is really exciting. We've been tearing that thing down. There's no walls in there anymore. We actually built a new wall, which I'm excited for. There are so many new things, a new name change. Some of you saw that happen on Facebook and on Instagram, and you're like, who is Ascension City Church? Well, when did that happen? Why did that happen? And I want to talk to you a little bit more about that as we go into this next series. I truly believe that this series is one that God's going to implant on the inside of our heart and is going to cause us to move. Would you turn to your neighbor and say, the good work? The good work. Come on, turn to your neighbor and say it like you mean it. Say, the good work. The good work. Okay, there's a good work that God is doing on the inside of every single one of us. And I want us to play a role. I want us to play a part. I don't want us to think that there's nothing going on. I don't want us to think that there is nothing happening in our lives. There's so much more happening in your life than you could ever think or imagine. There's a saying that I believe God placed on the inside of my heart. Many of you think we're going through a recession, but God is actually trying to take you through preparation. There's a big difference. So I want you to see this season not as a recession, but more as a preparation. And you may be saying, Pastor, I lost my job. I've lost loved ones. I don't understand how you're saying that God is preparing me for something when I really feel like I'm going backwards. Sometimes in the moments that we feel we're in the valley, God is actually trying to take us to a mountaintop. You're just coming off the mountain that you were on before, and the one that you're headed up right now is greater than you could ever think or imagine, as Ephesians 3 says. So let's jump into the good work. Now, before I say that, if you're the best of the best, you're first class, you're the star athlete, you're the most popular person in the room, I want to say that there's some good news. God can still use you. But I want to talk to those who believe that they're not capable. I want to talk to the ordinary people in the room. I want to talk to those that feel they can't. I want to talk to those that just, hey, I just go to work, I come home, I'm a dad, I'm a mom, but I guess I do great things. I don't really think that I do any great things. I want to talk to you because I want you to know that you are created to do so much more. I want you to know that there are things that God has placed on the inside of you that He wants to show you and bring out, that God is in the habit of using people like that. People that thought they were just ordinary. People that thought they had nothing to offer. So if you're sitting here right now thinking those things or feeling those things, would you tell your neighbor, that's the person God wants to use? Come on, say it. That's the person God wants to use. Come on, you're looking at their beautiful faces. If you're looking at your children, you're looking at your spouse, you're looking at a friend. I want you to believe that on the inside of them because that's what God has purposed them to do. But I've got to warn you about something. Because it sounds great to say, God's going to use me. Doesn't it feel good to say that? It feels really awesome to hear when somebody tells me, God wants to use me? But what does He want to use me for? Does it matter? The question is, will you make yourself available? Does it matter what he wants to use you for? What if he says, pick up a broom? I want to hold that broom like it's the best broom on the planet. I want to hold that broom like it's got heaven's power in it. You want to know why? Because it does. Because it does. I want you to believe that everything your hands touch is something that God has ordained for you. You may feel like changing the diaper on your child's behind right now is not the most important thing, but I want to tell you something. It's the most important thing you could have ever done today. I want to let you know right now, maybe taking your hands to the kitchen and saying, I just made food today. No, you didn't make food today. You provide. You played a part in what God is trying to do through your children. I need you to see the celestial things that God is trying to do. I need you to see what heaven is trying to bring through the earth through you. But listen to me. Where there are great things, there are great challenges. Where there is good work, there is one trying to manipulate the work. Where there is purpose, there is one that is trying to manipulate purpose. Where there is blessing, there is manipulation of blessing. Everywhere you go, there is tension. Oh my gosh. I want you to know this, and I want you to memorize this nice and good in your mind. That if you are out to do a good work, you will experience tension. Can I say that one more time? For everyone that thought when they started that business that it would just go okay, and all you would receive was great customers, and all you would receive was the exponential amount, but then you got into a season where you felt the tension, and you didn't expect it to happen. I want to say right now, I want you to expect the tension. Turn to your neighbor and say, expect the tension. Expect the tension. Expect the tension when the good work comes. Expect the tension when God is calling you to great things. Expect the tension. If you don't want tension, then don't do the great thing. If you don't want tension, don't believe you're called to something greater. If you don't want tension, don't get into a community. If you don't want tension, don't live up to your call. If you don't want tension, don't live up to your purpose. If you don't want tension, sit and do nothing, please. But if you truly believe that there is a good work, if you truly believe that there is a God in this universe, if you truly believe that He destined you and purpose for you something, then you need to recognize that you will experience tension. See, when God uses you, it always comes with a cost. Always comes with a cost. There's a price to pay that is greater than you could have ever imagined. There's pain that comes behind good work. There's agony that comes behind good work. There's rejection that comes behind good work. You don't believe me? Think about the moment you got saved. On the other side of your salvation, there was pain, agony, and rejection. But God saw you to be good work, so He sent somebody to talk to you about who He is so that you might fall in love with Him, and there was good work to be done. And don't you thank God that somebody showed up to your doorstep even when you looked like you were in pain and in agony, and you were in rejection, and you didn't want to talk to nobody, and you were angry with the world, and you were mad at everybody, and you wanted to get back at everybody. Aren't you so glad that God put it in somebody's heart to pull out the good work that's on the inside of you and didn't back down even when you pushed them away, didn't back down and said they loved you even when you called them names. They sat there and told you about a God that loved you regardless of the pain. Would you turn to your neighbor and say, I'm thankful for good work?
Thankful for good work.
You should be thankful for good work. I know I am. I know who I was. I'm glad that there was somebody that was willing to wrap their arms around me even when I was trying to push them away. I'm so glad that there was somebody that wanted to wrap their arms around me even when I had a knife in my hand. Even when I had weapons. Even when I had the grenade ready to throw the bomb off. I'm so glad there was somebody that was willing to go through the tension and get into the mud with this person to pull out the good work that God was trying to call on the inside of him. Discouragement, doubt, failure, heartache are all tied to good work. There are moments when you feel you need to stand alone, yet you're far from it. People won't understand when you have a good work. You get criticized, you get misunderstood, moments where you get mocked. You see, this message may not be for everybody, but I'm telling you right now, I'm talking to somebody. You see, because somebody right now is on the verge of quitting the good work that God has placed on the inside of them. Some of you need to quit. Some of you need to stop because what you think is good work is actually the opposite of the good work God has for you. Others of you are doing exactly what God wants you to do. And all you're experiencing right now are the trials and the challenges that come along with doing good work. You see, but I believe that sacrifices make a difference. I believe that the price that is being paid for the good work is the greater good of what's to come than the monetary thing that I'm feeling in the moment. See, I don't know about you, but the world would be different if you took a risk. Can I say that one more time? The world would be different if you took the risk, if you took the step of faith to obey what God is asking you to do. I want you and I to be a church. I want you and I to be sons and daughters. I want you and I to be in a place where we're willing to partner with God and say, God, I do. Would you turn to your neighbor and say, it's the greatest partnership you'll ever get into? It's the greatest partnership. Can I tell you this partner will never let you dry? Can I tell you this partner will never leave you alone? Can I tell you this partner is stronger than The Rock and Arnold Schwarzenegger and every other person that you could ever think or imagine? This partner that you have is the most intelligent person in the world. This partner you have is the only person that can say he is creator and not inventor. That's your partner. He's God. You see, I don't know about you, but that can make any ordinary person look extraordinary. Can I say that one more time and you should shout from the top of your rooftops? It can make any ordinary person look extraordinary when they're partnered with God. You want to look extraordinary, you ain't going to do it all by yourself. You're going to be doing it by being partnered with God. You want to be an extraordinary father? Partner up with God. You want to be an extraordinary mother? Partner up with God. You want to be an extraordinary business owner? Partner up with God. It's the way you take an ordinary person and move them into the extraordinary things of God. I think it's a beautiful thing. You see, God wants to use ordinary people, and when partnered with Him, they become extraordinary. See, there are a lot of people in Scripture that I believe attest to this ordinary to extraordinary moment, this remodel, if you will say, this remanufacturing of a person. And there's one person that I really want to look at, and his name is Nehemiah. Nehemiah is a person that was an ordinary person and becomes extraordinary when he allows God to do a good work in him. Now, you and I need to know what the good work looks like, and I'm going to get there so that you might know exactly what God is trying to do in and through us, Ascension City Church. Because that name changes for a reason. I believe that God is trying to cause a city to emerge from His church, to establish economies, to establish communities, to establish centers of hope. I want you and I to know that that is what He has called Ascension City Church to be. A place where fostering can happen. A place where the YMCA can grow. A place where we can have theaters. A place where coffee shops can be. A place where we would earn the right to share the gospel with the community, not act as though we have the right to. There's a big difference. I think many times we walk around with the right to share the gospel. Listen to me. You go to a homeless person right now and you think you have the right to share the gospel, but you have no food in your hands. I'll tell you somebody that's not going to listen to you. You want to know why? People could care less about what you have to say until you show them how much you care. Hear what I'm telling you. I'm not saying that the gospel doesn't have power. I'm saying the gospel has every power to do in it what it is supposed to do. But listen to me. Jesus, before He told the disciples to follow Him, before He got a hold of Simon Peter, oh, that stubborn man, but the one that made such a world of a difference when you get to the book of Acts, He said, cast your net over there. He proved to them He was the Messiah. He proved the love He had for them by what? By providing for them. He provided for them. They cast their net, and an overflow of fish happened in the boat. And right after that was done, He said, come and follow me. Come and follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. Oh, how He changed the trajectory of their mindsets. What if I could tell you that we could change the trajectory of the mindset of the community if we had a mentality like Jesus had, to be a part of the community? See, I believe that Ascension City Church is called to something like that. That is why the name is changed. Because it's not just Ascension Church. I don't just want you to think church building. I want you to think community. I want you to think our kids playing soccer together. I want you to think football being played together. I want you to think theater being played together. I want you to think technology being emerged, and video games that come out of the gospel, and movies that come forth from the Bible that are not boring and that don't look and move in a specific way, but that you would be tied to it just the way you're tied to Netflix. Just the way you're tied to Hulu, just the way you're tied to other streams and other avenues. I want us to be tied the same way to His church. Listen to me, He wants us to be on the verge of causing change in our society, in our culture, and I believe that we can be that as a church. Ascension City, do you believe that? Turn to your neighbor and say, I believe that that can happen. If you're a parent, would you tell your children, I want you growing up in that city? I want you growing up in that city. Yes, you do. I want my kids growing up in that city. That's what I think about. I think about the next generation. Where are they going to live? Right now we're writing out history, and I want to make sure that the history that is being written is that heaven is coming to the earth, and that we as a church played a part. We are that city. So, let's do the good work. Let the good work begin. You see, I may not be the pastor. You may not be the pastor. You may not be the priest. You may not be the prophet. You may not be the king. You may not be the politician. You may not be any of those things. But are you a person? Are you an ordinary person? Then all you need to see is something that compels you. And I hope right now we're playing enough vision in your mind to compel you to move and act on something that God is placing on the inside of your heart. My hope today is that we would have a heart like Nehemiah. And I'm going to show you what he did. Nehemiah is somebody in the Bible. He was a cupbearer. Would you say cupbearer? He was a cupbearer. He was somebody that would stand next to the king, and he would make sure that his cup wasn't poisoned, that anything that he was about to drink would not kill the king. Now, I don't know about you, but you got to have some really good benefits to take that job on. Right? I'm like, you got insurance? And is that insurance covered? Is there a hospital nearby? Like, I want to make sure all those things are set up. Do I got life insurance? Are my kids going to be okay after it's all said and done? I'll try anything for the king, but I just want to make sure you're going to take care of our family when it's all said and done. But listen to me. This is what his life consisted of. His life consisted of being an ordinary person that would sit there and take a drink of the king. And you may be saying, well, but that's not ordinary. In the king's chambers, that was ordinary. And right here in a moment, on a regular day, an ordinary guy hears some news that changed the course of his life. Nehemiah chapter 1 verse 2 says it like this. Hananiah, one of my brothers, came from Judah with some other men, and I questioned them about the Jewish remnant that had survived the exile, and also about Jerusalem. See, Nehemiah had asked his brother to tell him about his people, his homeland. He's like, hey, how's our home? How's our homeland? Because 140 years earlier, in 586 BC, the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar came and attacked Jerusalem and had completely destroyed the city. I want you to think about this for a second. There used to be a beautiful temple, Solomon's temple. It was built with gold. It's completely burned to the ground. Every building is under rubble. Gates are burned. There's absolutely no protection. Everything they knew was gone. And the Babylonians took tens of thousands of Jews. It was demoralizing. There was no hope. There was no future. I think right now, in the midst of our time, we can feel a little chaotic as the stocks go down and the jobs are, and we're feeling certain things right now with what's going on in COVID. And I think we could feel what he's feeling. But decades later, 50,000 Jews moved back to Jerusalem to rebuild. And look at what it says, Nehemiah 1:3. This was the report that the brother ends up giving Nehemiah. Because Nehemiah says, hey, I want to know about my homeland. I know it was destroyed. I know that there were some things that have happened. I've been serving the king here. Please let me know what's going on. Because 50 Jews had moved back to rebuild the wall. So he's like, what's the status? They said to me, those who survived the exile are back in the province, are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down, and its gates have been burned with fire. So Nehemiah hears something. He hears no wall, no protection. It's very vulnerable. There's no leadership. There's no direction, no confidence, no plan, no hope. So the question becomes, when I hear all these things, how am I supposed to start to do a good work? That's a great question. And that's the question that I want to answer for you today. How do you begin the good work? That's my question to you today. In the midst of COVID-19, how do I begin a good work? In the midst of, I may not be able to go to church, how do I begin that good work? In the midst when I can't talk to people, how do I begin the good work? No, you can still do all those things. It's just shifted. We now meet online. We have technology. Church may not happen in the physical, but it's definitely happening through technology. And I want you and I to make it a point to jump onto a place where we can encourage one another. Even though we may not be able to physically see each other, we will still interact and encourage one another, that we might be all that God has called us to be, to continue the good work that He has started on the inside of you. So how do I begin? Here's point number 1. You sit down to cry. Well, that definitely doesn't want to make me start a good work, Pastor. Look at what Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4 says. It says, when I heard these things, I sat down and wept. You see, it's easy for you and I to shake off bad news. It's easy for you and I to hear an injustice and say, well, I'll pray for them. It's easy for you and I to allow things to grab a hold of our eyes, but never allow something to capture our heart. It's easy for us to go to our day-to-day business and never recognize what God is asking to break our hearts. So you want to know how to begin a good work? Here's the first thing. Sit down to cry. What is the very thing that makes you cry? And don't make it about a platform. I'm asking you, when news comes to your ears and you hear the voice of God, is it what breaks His heart? They said to cry. So it's easy for Nehemiah. Nehemiah could have just shook off the bad news. Why do I say that? He was in the king's palace. He ate the king's food. He was chilling watching Netflix. He had a 4K TV on. He was the one sitting there taking Snapchats on Insta. He was doing Snapchats, posting on Instagram, #blessed in the king's palace. That was his life. His life was okay. #humble to serve. But there were people in Jerusalem that were struggling almost 1,000 miles away. So he made a choice. Turn to your neighbor and say, you got a choice to make. You got a choice to make. As God continues to do a good work in Ascension City Church, as God continues to do a good work through His church, as God continues to do a good work, and it's a good work. We can't forget that. It is still a good work. You have a choice. I'll play a part or move apart. I'll play a part or I'll move apart. I'll use everything in the book to say why I've leaned out, or I'll make sure nothing makes me lean out. Ascension City Church, I believe that you and I are the kind of church and the kind of family that moves together in a place where we say we'll lean in. I believe that we're the kind of church that says, hey, where's the good work? Let's lean into it. I don't know what it looks like, but I've got a hand. I don't know what time I got to be there, but I'm willing to be there. I may not have all the money in the world, but I'll play the part to put whatever it is that we've got to do. I want to make sure that we create a change. I want to be a part of something that is greater than myself. Turn to your neighbor and say, are you a part of something greater than yourself? And I want you to ask yourself this daunting question. Is what you're building only making you greater? Is what you're building only making you greater? How do you know? Are you experiencing tension? Does what you cry over make God's heart cry as well? So Nehemiah could have pushed the pain away, but he chose to let it in. He didn't just think that it was a heartbreaking thing. He didn't just say, oh, that was a good thing. Oh, sorry. I'll pray for them. I'll think about them. No. So I'm asking you, what breaks your heart? Is it children? Children that can't read? Special needs? People that have been bullied, neglected, abused? People that are bound by addiction, hostage, drugs, pornography, sex trafficking? These are real things. Homelessness, What are the things that move my heart? What are the things that make me sit and cry? Or do I sit there and say, I'll just pray. I'll just pray. So here was my first point. Sit down to cry. Let it in. Feel the pain. Embrace the burden. Let it in. Feel the pain. Embrace the burden. Don't worry when it hurts. Don't worry when it aches. Because it'll get you to this next thing. How do you begin a good work? You sit down to cry. And then you kneel down to pray. You sit down to cry. And you kneel down to pray. See, it's moving you somewhere. It's not I'm just going to feel this and I'm going to get here in my... No, I'm going to feel this and now I'm going to pray. I can do something. And that something is going to pray. Nehemiah 1:4, this is exactly what Nehemiah does. We're taking an ordinary person and now we're mixing it with an extraordinary God. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. You see, if it's big enough to cry about, it's big enough to pray about. Can I say that one more time? If it's big enough to cry about, it should be big enough to pray about. You see, I dread when people say that daunting word, and I've said it plenty of times. All we can do now is pray. I'm only one person. What can I do? What can you do? Invoke the God of heaven. Because you plus God creates extraordinary things. So when you stop looking at yourself as one person and you start looking at yourself partnered with the God of heaven, you can start to make a change and a difference in areas that you never thought could happen. And all it is if you allow it to sink in and if you start to pray. Look at what happens right here in Nehemiah 1:5-6. He says this, Lord, the God of heaven, the great and awesome God. Look at how Nehemiah sees him. Who keeps his covenant of love with those who love him and keep his commandments. Let your ear be attentive and your eyes be open to hear the prayer your servant is praying before you day and night for your servants, the people of Israel. He begins to pray. He begins to invoke the God of heaven. He says, God, I know you can. God, would you hear these prayers that I'm about to tell you? He didn't shy away from the problem. He brought the problem to a bigger place. He brought it to a God of solutions. And he says, all right, I'm going to hear you. Go ahead, speak to me. He begins to confess his sins. He reminds God of his promises, his faithfulness. He goes before the king. And this is what he does. Nehemiah gets so bold that not only did he go before the king of heaven, he goes before the king of Persia. He goes before the king of Persia. But before he does, listen to me. Listen to me. Turn to your neighbor real quick and say, slow down. So I know you're getting excited. I know you want to go talk to your boss about what you want to do right now. You're like, I feel it. I'm crying right now, Pastor. I just got on my knees and prayed. Slow down. Okay. Before you just start to jump. I want you to see what Nehemiah prays next because it's important. There's a process to this. Nehemiah 1:11, he prays this. Give your servant success today by granting him favor in the presence of this man. Who is he talking about? He is asking God for favor with the king of Persia. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever asked God for favor with another person to bring heaven down to earth? God, would you give me favor with this person so that this might happen on the earth? You want to pray bigger prayers? This is what they sound like. This is what it looks like. To move, to act, to work, to reveal your glory. God, would you stretch me? God, would you empower me? What you pray about reflects what you believe about God. I'm going to say it again. What you pray about reflects what you believe about God. You praying for your food all the time? I see how you believe about God. You praying for protection all the time? I see what you believe about God. Listen to me. What if your prayer became a little bit different? Instead of bless my food, keep me safe, help me have a good day? What if it was the opposite? God, put me in a place where I can take a risk. God, place me somewhere where I can invoke change. God, put me in some tension. God, place me in a place where I can stretch my capacity. God, stretch my knowledge, stretch my mind, stretch my heart, stretch my spirit. Would you put me in places where I'm uncomfortable? You see, instead of praying that God would put you in a place where you would be comfortable, Ascension City Church, I want us to be put into a completely opposite space and place. I want us to go to places where we never thought we could ever dream or imagine. I want us to go into neighborhoods we never thought we'd be in. I want to talk with people I thought we'd never be able to talk to. I want to do things that I can't even think about right now. I want to be able to get to a space and a place where 10 years down the road, I'm going to look at myself and say, I could have never guessed God was going to take us there, but I prayed for it. Did you see what I said? I could have never thought God was going to take us there, but I prayed for it. I prayed for it. I didn't know how. I didn't know when. I didn't know what it was going to look like, but I believed for it. And I prayed for those moments. And when you pray for those moments, expect the moments to come. If you believe in a God in heaven who is listening to His sons and daughters, then listen to me. If you're praying for a good work, then you better believe the tension will come. And you better hope the tension comes, because you're going to need that tension to be stretched to the next moment of your season. If you're the kind of person that's asking for good work, but you look at the tension and you say, God, it's getting too hard. God, I just want to roll over. God, it's just not enough. You're forgetting who you're partnered with. Rather start to tell God, God, all right, I believe you. I trust in you. I know you're walking me through. I know it seems hard. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no man. I shall feel no evil. For thy rod and thy staff, it comforts me. But I want you to see how it comforts. You're walking into dark places. You're going into the night. And can I tell you something? If He's made you to be a light, then you have to go into the dark to shine it. It's what we're meant to do. It's a beautiful thing. See, this is the first of 12 prayers mentioned in Nehemiah. It's the first of 12. 12 prayers in this season of his life. I don't know about you, but I love Nehemiah. He was a leadership genius. He was a genius. He investigates. He casts vision in this book. And we're going to go through all these things. He strategizes. He delegates. He faces opposition. But he never forgets to have intense and intimate prayer with the Father. He never forgets where his source comes from. And some of you have embarked to do good work, but you have forgotten to get on your knees. I'm experiencing tension and it hurts. And the question becomes, have you cried about it? Have you gotten on your knees about it? Is it about you, or is it about the greater good? Listen to me. What struck the heart of Nehemiah wasn't something for Nehemiah. His heart struck for a city. Did you hear what I said? It struck for the city of God that he was trying to build. Church, I believe right now what God is telling us, God is asking that our heart would move for a city, an establishment that would move a community to come to know who He is. And I believe that it is built around a space and a place that God is asking us to build, where people want to come to bring their families, where people want to come to bring their children, where people want to come and spend time, not just because we have a right to share the gospel, but because we fellowship together, because we broke bread together, because we've played together. And I believe in those moments we have earned a right to share the gospel. And somebody may not turn me away, because all I want to do is this. No, I've shared my life with you. May I share where my life comes from now? Big difference. I want you to see the picture. So what is it? So how do you begin that good work? You sit down to cry. You kneel down to pray. And here's the third one. You stand up and act. Sit down and cry. Kneel down to pray. And stand up and act. You're saying, what are you asking me to cry about? Our church is going through a moment right now where God's asked us to plant in a time when people see a recession. And you're saying, but not everybody else is building. Not everybody else is doing that. I thought we were supposed to take the back burner on this. No, we're not. No, we're not. Because now more than ever, I see hearts that need more of God. Now more than ever, I see a city. I see a country. I see a world that needs His church now more than ever. I see communities that need His church now more than ever, that would shout from the rooftops that there is a God, an all-powerful God that has purpose and plans for your life, regardless of what the environment looks like. That there is a time to be born and there is a time to die. That there is a time for health and there is a time for sickness. That there is a time to harvest and a time to plant. And I believe now more than ever, when everybody is saying, don't plant, I'm saying, let's plant. I'm saying, God is saying, put in the ground some toil and some seed and go to work. Because in a couple of years, there will be a harvest. And when everybody else is planting, you will be picking. Do you hear what I'm saying? It's about the way we're raising our kids. And I say that because the heart of the Father is raising kids. The heart of the Father is raising His children to come to know Him in such a way that they would be Him on this earth. I think about my children. I think about what it's going to look like for them in the school. I think about what technology is going to look like for them in the future. I think about the movies that they'll watch in the future. I think about the gaming systems that they'll have in the future. I think about virtual reality in the future. I think about space in the future. I think about cars in the future. I think about church in the future. I don't know about you, but that's the way He's designed me, to see vision of the future. And I don't know about you, I don't want to get left in the dust. I don't want God's church to get left in the dust. You want to know what I cry about? I cry about that. I cry about what that's going to look like. I cry about the children that are being raised by mothers and fathers that are still children themselves. That's what I'm thinking in my mind. I think about the children that don't have moms and dads. I think about the 4 foster kids that I have right now in my family. That's who I think about. What about them? Who builds for them? Who changes worlds and fears for them? Who gives them voices? That's what I think about. That's what I get on my knees about. That's what I hope we as a church would be one day. That we wouldn't make it about ourselves. That we wouldn't make it about our name being great, but His name being great. Because then I tell you something, when those kids grow up, my physical mom and dad may not have been there, but there was a church, a community, and I know them by name. I know Pastor Bobby and Pastor Ruby. I know the worship leader, Will. I know Abby. I know Fernando. I know Caleb. I know Killy. I know Vivian. I know them. And they'll be able to say, that was my family. Who raised me? My family did. What city did I grow up in? A place called Ascension City. You should come check it out. You don't even have to go to church with me. Why don't you just go visit the Y? Why don't you just go visit the movie theater there? Because every place of business there has one thought process in mind. It's that you might sit down at our table. That at one day we might have earned the right to share the gospel with you. I don't know about you. That's a vision that's worth crying about. That's a vision worth kneeling about. That's a vision worth standing up and acting for. Nehemiah 2:4-5 says it like this. The king said to me, what is it that you want? Then I prayed to the God of heaven, and I answered the king. I want you to see how it happens. The king asked him, what do you want? And sometimes you and I are afraid to tell the person that's in front of us that has the resource and the provision to do exactly what you know need is necessary. And we get afraid for what we think somebody might think of us and what they might say about us. I don't want us to be that people church. I want us to be the kind of church that when people ask us, what are you doing there? Why are you asking those questions? Why is generosity your lifestyle? Why are you talking about building those things? I want us to be able to pray and to boldly answer the king the way Nehemiah says, if it pleases the king, and if your servant has found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, that I can rebuild it. And I pray that when you have a moment in front of somebody, because listen to me, you are a leader. There are people in your sphere that want to know what you have to say. And I pray that out of your mouth would come. I've prayed about it. And I want you to know about a city that is being born. I want you to know about some things that are being built that are going to make a change, and my heart is after it. Would you let me go and do it? Actually, would you come with me? would you be a part of it? And listen to me. Nehemiah makes the king a part of something God is doing, even when it wasn't something that was on his mind. But you know what the favor of God does? The favor of God puts something in somebody else's mind, even when they thought they weren't thinking about it. That's my prayer for us, church. That in this moment, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'm praying about it. Not because it's the last thing, but because it's the first thing. And I'm believing he will. I'm believing one day on 39 acres of property, we will walk through a city and a town that is creating change in a community where there may have never been one. That's what I see. I see streets filled with kids, playing with one another, talking about who God is, wanting to know. Teachers, mentors. Nehemiah said, my people are hurting. Walls are down. City is exposed. Someone's got to do something. It might as well be me. So I'm telling you right now, there's a building that needs to get built. And not just that building. Because I want us to take away the four walls of a church. And I want you to think community centers. I want you to get into that space and place. And I'm saying there's some things that need to be built for communities. Homes that are going up in that area. Things that people need to know, grow. Mothers and fathers that they haven't yet met, yet you're the one. You're the mother and father. You have children that you yet to know about. You may say, well, I never raised and I'll never give birth to any. No, but God has called you to be that thing. You're not too busy. You're that someone that can make a difference. You can't do everything, but you can do something. And that's what I'm asking us as a church to do. I'm not asking one person to do everything. I'm asking all of us to do something. I'm not asking one person to do everything. I'm asking all of us to do something. Sit down to cry. Kneel down to pray. Stand up to act. You don't have to be appointed by man if you're called by God. Man doesn't establish who you're supposed to be. God does. Before I pray for you, I want to tell you some stories of people who stood up and acted based on a conviction that God gave them. Ascension City Church has a special needs ministry inside this church. And you can look at us as pastors and say, it was something that God birthed on the inside of them. No. There was a couple that stood up and said, there's a need here. There's a need in this area. Had a heart. I think they sat down to cry. I think they kneeled to pray and they stood up to act. I can tell you that we moved and bleed and prayed with them, but they moved and acted. And now because of them, we have a special needs ministry. You can thank Carlos and Mercy for that. That if you find a home here and your children have those very things, and you're saying, well, I never thought I'd find a place or a space that would create something like that. God placed something on the inside of someone's heart, and because they listened to what God told them to do, it happened. And there are many more stories like that. Your church has a similar story like that. Can I tell you something? That story is in your heart right now. And I can't wait to read the chapter. And I pray that it go a little something like this. Man, God one day had me in the DMs of a church called Ascension City Church. And I heard a crazy pastor, moved by the Spirit of God, tell me about a home and a place for children and families that would make a difference. And I played a role in that. Would you bow your head and close your eyes? I want to pray a big prayer over your life. And I pray you'd mimic these things. Because Jesus prayed prayers for the kingdom of God. Jesus prayed city prayers. He says, our Father who art in heaven. Meaning he's not from this world. He wants to colonize this one. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. So I'm praying right now. I'm praying, God, that you would bless every person listening right now. I pray for discomfort in their lives at the ease of any answers. I'm going to say that one more time. God, I pray for discomfort at every easy answer and every easy turn that they take. I pray that the half-truths and the superficial relationships that they have may dive deeper into their hearts. That's what I'm praying right now. No surface level. No, I just go to church. I pray that they'd be the church. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that you may work for justice, freedom, and peace. That's my prayer. My prayer right now, God, that you would bless every person listening with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war. So that whoever's listening may reach out your hand to comfort them and to turn their pain into joy. God, may you bless us with enough foolishness to believe that you can make a difference in this world, so that you can do what others claim cannot be done. In Jesus' name, amen.